Greetings, Africa. This is King H, Pan-Africanist from Southern Cameroon. Africans, by now you must have seen the video that's going on with the French lawmaker shouting, "Go back to Africa," as a black MP is speaking. What does that tell you, Africans? When French lawmaker shouts, "Go back to Africa," to a black MP, what does that tell you, Africans on the continent and Africans around the globe and Africans around the world? What does that tell you? What does that tell you, Africans? When they are shouting to an MP that go back to Africa. You see, the hatred of whites to black people, to Africans, it's in the air. It can never go away. It's in their nature. It's who they are. They have shown us from time and time who they really are. But for some reason, Africans don't want to confront the reality of who whites are, of who French people are, of who Europeans are. Remember, France colonized about 1/3 of Africa. Countries like Gabon, Senegal, Niger, Chad, Togo, Burkina Faso, Mali, Cameroon, Benin, Madagascar, Guinea, Central Africa, Congo, the two Congos, Ivory Coast. The list goes on. So many French African countries that were colonized by France. And when you talk about colonization, what was the process of colonization? Many of our ancestors perished in the hands of French members of France. Why? Because they wanted to exploit the resources of Africa, and some of those resources were the human resources, were Africans that they used as slaves, were sold out, taken across the world. When will you realize the nature of white French men and women? Their viciousness, the violence, how cruel and demonic they can be. When are you going to realize that? And on top of that, all French African colonies, like Burkina Faso, like Cameroon, like Benin, still paid taxes, colonial taxes, to French banks. They came and colonized us. They killed us. They exploited us. Yet, we are still paying colonial taxes to France. When will French Africa rise up? When will all African countries rise up against France? The hatred of black people is global. It's a disease. But we need to realize that Africans must do something to stop this madness, this disease that's in their nature, that they have to be racist towards us, that they have to treat us with hatred. You see, Africans, we must rise. We must take our place in our continent. We must stop doing business with France. We must cut off all link to France, especially Ivory Coast, that is so sucked in France. It's as if they are French men and women. Meanwhile, they are Africans who were colonized, who were victimized, who were tortured by the same French people that are telling black MP to go back to Africa. You see, why do you think all this is happening now? With what is happening globally, the war in Ukraine and versus Russia, the energy is causing so much chaos. France is getting poor. Things are going crazy in Europe. They don't know what to do. And the first people that will latch out at, it's not even the Russians that they hate, it's Africans. That's the first people they will latch out at. But when will Africans realize that we don't need francs in Africa? We don't need to do business with francs at all. Our leaders from Gabon to Senegal, Niger, Chad, Togo need to cut off francs completely from the continent. Even English-speaking African nations need to cut link completely from francs. Remember, these same nation will put sanction on you, sanctions in your country, just to have their ways. When can an African country sanction a European country? This is the time we need to build the boldness, the gut, to fight back and to stand for the truth for Africa and to raise the continent of Africa to a next level that it must become, or else perish. This is King H.